What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Football Corner Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremiah Queen, and it's official. Super Bowl 57, the matchup for the biggest game in the world. Okay, not biggest game in the world. Maybe the second biggest game in the world will consist of first-team All-Pro Pat Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs versus second-team All-Pro quarterback Jalen Hurts of the Philadelphia Eagles. This should be a great Super Bowl. But, of course, before we get started talking about that in this episode, I would like for all my viewers out there on YouTube to hit that subscribe button, click that notification bell so you could be alerted, notified when new videos hit the channel. Also, if you're listening to me on a podcast app like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or even Spotify, go follow the podcast. And as always, let's cue it up. So 2 games to play on Sunday. You had the Afc Championship game, NFC Championship game. I'm going to get started with the NFC Championship game because the game was already won by the Eagles because of what happened in the game. So in the AFC Championship game, it was a number 1 seed and number 2 seed in the NFC. Philadelphia Eagles versus the number 1 ranked defense in the San Francisco 49ers. The end they score ended up being 31-7. And you're wondering, how did we get to this point? Well, first drive of the game, the 49ers decided to put a tight end blocking one of the best pass rushers in the league in Haason Reddick, who's had a monstrous season, but also you having tight ends block the best defensive line in football. This at that time, before that game started, that team had 73 sacks, 75 sacks coming into that game, and they're already up to 78 after the game's over with. They have a chance, if they have 5 sacks in the Super Bowl, against Pat Mahomes to be the all-time sack team in NFL history. They'll be surpassing the 84 Bears, who had 82 sacks in a single season. That'll be an incredible feat to actually accomplish. But let's get back to the game. So Brock Purdy gets his elbow/arm hit by Haason Reddick, and causing a fumble, and Brock Purdy would not be able to throw a football past 5 yards for the rest of the game. So, of course, you'd be like, well, they had a backup. They had another quarterback who came into the travel with the game. It would be journeyman Josh Johnson. Anybody who knows who Josh Johnson is, he's like, I'm thinking he's like a 5th-round pick from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers back in 2008, 2009. And he has started in 9 games. He's 1-8 as a starter. And the one win he did have, I actually watched that game. It was already back in 2018. My sorry Jaguars were just going through a lot of quarterbacks in terms of Blake Bortles, Cody Kessler, former Cleveland quarterback. It was just a bad year for us. And he beat a really bad team in the 2018 Jaguars. And he was playing in a game where it was the Washington Redskins at the time, but they are now called the Washington Commanders. And then that game, that team was also riddled with injured quarterbacks. You had Mark Sanchez, who was on that roster. Alex Smith, that's when he tore up his knee and he tore up his leg, which he had to get multiple surgeries, and he had an infection. And if you know Alex Smith's story, you know what happened after that. But he came in that game, won the game, and it's crazy because I'll never forget, during that game, he talked about, well, how'd you figure out your teammates so fast? Because it was a quick turnaround. He was signed because Mark Sanchez was going to be able to play. He got signed, put into the starting lineup, and he said he figured out his teammates by playing Madden, it just goes to show you how not long he's been on that team. But let's get back to the championship game. So that happened. Josh Johnson comes in. Josh Johnson would lead in his 3rd drive to a touchdown. They'll score 7 points off of an amazing Christian McCaffrey run. He broke like 3 tackles. He has to be one of the best plays of the year because he just bulldozer over multiple players, including a Pro Bowl safety and C.J. Gardner-Johnson. It was amazing to watch. But after that touchdown, they would get the ball back. The score would be 14-7. Under 2 minutes, the 49ers and Josh Johnson are driving down the field. They're trying to at least get 3 points on the board, or maybe even a touchdown to tie the game at a half, because they still have the number 1 defense. So if you the team could get any type of points, you're assuming your defense is going to be able to stop them. And unfortunately, he takes his eye off the snap, fumbles the snap. It was inexcusable. He was in a shotgun position, and the Eagles would get the ball and score again. And at halftime, the score was 21-7, and that essentially was the ball game. Josh Johnson would be going to concussion protocol at the end of the game. Brock Purdy would have to come back in. He would throw one more pass, which was like a 5-yard screen. Couldn't do it. They had Christian McCaffrey throw the ball one time. It was very unfortunate because Kyle Shanahan has dealt with QB problems all season, and in the biggest game of the season for them, their QB got injured. So now you have an injured Jimmy Garoppolo, you have a injured Trey Lance, and now you have an injured Brock Purdy. So going into the offseason for the 49ers, it should be very interesting to see who they go with going forward. I'm assuming Jimmy G will still be let go as a free agent, and you hoping that the rehab of Brock Purdy and Trey Lance goes well. If I was the 49ers, I'll be looking at a third option at QB in the 2023 NFL season. Now let's go to the Eagles. Great job with the Eagles. I've never seen a turnaround happen so fast. People, keep in mind, last year, 2021, they were roasting the Eagles and their head coaching hiring and Nick Sirianni. They say he didn't know how to give a post-game conference. He didn't know how to talk to the media correctly. So they'll pick it on him. People said this is going to be a one-and-done deal. What has Howie Roseman been doing? The GM. And look at him now. Nick Sirianni, in 2 years as being the head coach of the Eagles, first year went 9-8, led his team to the playoffs where they got knocked out by the Buccaneers in the wild card round. His second year, they're going to the Super Bowl. And people be like, well, this is the easiest path to the Super Bowl that anybody will ever have. You had to play Daniel Jones and the Giants, and you had to play injured Brock Purdy and the 49ers. The Eagles can't control who they play. It's not their fault. But the Eagles have always been the most dominant team in the regular season. When Jalen Hurts is a starter, he is 16-1, including the playoffs. The one loss is a controversial loss against the Commanders. So you could say Jalen Hurts could be an undefeated quarterback going into the Super Bowl. And he didn't get second-team All-Pro by accident. They have multiple first-team All-Pro and Pro Bowlers on their offense. Jason Kelce, Lane Johnson, Miles Sanders is a Pro Bowler. A.J. Brown is a Pro Bowler. So stop making excuses about how easy their path was. That's what happens when you get the number one seed. You're usually supposed to play easier opponents. And unfortunately, due to the quarterback being injured, they had the easiest path. But guess what? They deserved it. They earned it. They're the most dominant team all year. And we'll see if they could win it all in Super Bowl 57. So let's go ahead and talk about the AFC Championship. It's official. I know I've talked about it in videos I put on social media about how Joe Burrow could possibly be coming for the number one QB spot in the NFL. But let's end that discussion right now. Pat Mahomes is the best QB in the NFL. It's not even close. This game just solidified what we knew about Pat Mahomes. Look at his resume already. Pat Mahomes, in 5 years as a starter, is a 2-time MVP because he's going to win MVP this year. Let's be honest here. I'm going to go ahead and say he's going to win MVP. He's first-team All-Pro. I don't think anybody else is going to win an MVP. Other people got MVP votes, but Pat Mahomes, 9 times out of 10, when you win first-team All-Pro, the other quarterbacks who are MVP, and it's the same voters in the Associated Press, he's going to win MVP. So 2-time Pro Bowler, for 2-time first-team All-Pro, 2-time MVP, 5-time Pro Bowler, has played in 5 consecutive AFC Championship games, and now is going to be playing in 3 Super Bowls. And always forget I didn't say he's a Super Bowl MVP and a Super Bowl champion. In his first 5 seasons, you could say, well, Brady did it, but Brady had a defense. Let's be honest. He had Teddy Bruschi, he had Ty Law, Willie McGinnis, Richard Seymour. He had Vince Wilfork. He had dominant all-pro caliber players in that defense that was helping him. Now, Brady is still an all-time great quarterback. I don't want to take nothing away from him. But Pat Mahomes is doing it with always a bottom 20 defense. It is what it is. You remember the first year that he was a starter, 2018? That defense was atrocious. And that defense is the reason why he didn't go to the Super Bowl in 2018. Because one guy decided to be, and I'm going to put his name out there, D Ford, who I'm not mistaken, ended up getting traded to the 49ers after that season. One guy decided to be offsides on the biggest play of the game that would have gave the Chiefs a victory. And unfortunately, they would send D Ford to 49ers. They were signed Frank Clark, and now Frank Clark has 13.5 sacks, which is third all time in the playoff history. Only people he's behind is Hall of Famer Bruce Smith and former first-team All-Pro from the Patriots, Willie McGinnis, who has 16 sacks. Frank Clark's going to break that record pretty soon. I could see it coming. Pat Mahomes' resume is so amazing, and he has always been the most dominant quarterback. And you already could say, talent-wise, he's better than Brady. He has a bigger arm than Brady. He's more mobile than Brady. He could throw from any position on the field better than Brady. And he reads the field as good as Brady. Not to take away from Brady. I keep saying this. But Pat Mahomes' resume through his first 5 years, you already could argue that he's a Hall of Fame player. Now, of course, most players who get in the Hall of Fame, you want them to play at least 10 years or more to actually have. But even if he played 10 years and didn't receive any other accolades, he'd still be a 5-time Pro Bowler and 2-time MVP in 10 years. That's more than a lot of Hall of Fame quarterbacks should even ask for. Dan Marino, am I mistaken, he was the 1-time MVP. Terry Bradshaw, 1-time MVP. Those are 2 Hall of Famers that's just named that only won an MVP once. And those are considered all-time great quarterbacks. Dan Marino especially, since he had changed the game in the passing. But let's get back to the AFC Championship game recap. The game was tight both ways. Both teams needed their defense to make plays. T. Higgins, let's go ahead and say he's the number 1 receiver. I'm tired of everybody saying, well, Jamar Chase is number 1. I see T. Higgins. Each time I see T in the playoff game, T. Higgins shows up, makes big plays, make big catches, score touchdowns in the biggest games in the postseason. T. Higgins is him, okay? If you could say he's 1B to Jamar Chase 1A, I would accept that. But don't call him a number 2 receiver because he's the number 1. Okay? It just so happens that they have 2 number 1s on the same roster. T. Higgins is him. Joe Burrow had the worst game in the playoffs, and he decided to have it in this AFC Championship game. He threw 2 interceptions that was inexcusable. One, you could say, it was a great play by the rookie Jalen Watson. Well, like, you underthrew him. Just overthrow him. I mean, that's all I always say. Never underthrow a receiver. Because what he was trying to do, like almost like a back shoulder fade in the middle of the field. And it's almost like the kind of same play that he had on Jamar Chase on the 4th and 6, where they made a spectacular, Jamar Chase made a spectacular catch. But you can't do that. Interception happened. And then third, keep in mind, people, this is in the 4th quarter, he throws it up to T. Higgins. T. Higgins is a great receiver, but he's double covered. He thought T. Higgins had a little bit of a step, but yet he still kind of underthrew the ball. Like I said, you always overthrow it. A receiver could probably get pass interference. A receiver could go underneath it. But if you throw it just slightly underthrown, they always give you time for the safety to catch up. And the safety made a play. Another rookie tipped it to another rookie, and they ended up being intercepted. Pat Mahomes got the ball back with roughly 39 seconds. I still don't agree with how they managed that time. I understand you wanted to save enough time, but if I was Zach Taylor, I didn't want to get Pat Mahomes the ball back at all. I didn't want him to have the ball back at all because we've seen what he has done in 13 seconds. So if you were playing on trying to get a field goal, you'd be running the clock out if you're seeing the drive is not going your way at all. And that's what I would have did. Unfortunately, you left too much time on the clock, 39 seconds, then Joseph Adai, Pat Mahomes scrambles for a first down, pushes him out of bounds, give him an extra 15 yards. So instead of a 60-yard field goal, it turns into a 45-yard field goal, and that's the ball game. Pat Mahomes is going to his 3rd Super Bowl. He'll be playing at Super Bowl 57. Pat Mahomes is an all-time great quarterback already. There's something you can say about it. He is the number 1 quarterback, and I don't see anybody taking that crown away from him anytime soon. Super Bowl 57 should be a great game. Jalen Hurts Pat Mahomes, two black quarterbacks. First time two black quarterbacks to be starting in the Super Bowl against each other. Should be amazing. First time we get the number one seeds going at it against each other in a long time. Usually it's like a number one seed and a number three seed, a number two seed and a number three seed, something like that. I mean, last year's Super Bowl was the the number four seed and the number two seed. I mean, number three seed going at it in the Rams and the Bengals. Sometimes it falls that way. But now we have the two best teams going at it, and I can't wait to see the outcome in Super Bowl 57. Thank you for watching and listening to the Football Corner Podcast. Podcast episodes will be dropped on Mondays and Fridays, as well as YouTube videos on Mondays and Fridays. You could keep track of this podcast by hitting that subscribe button, clicking that notification bell, and also you can follow me on social media pages that's on the About page on the YouTube channel. Thanks for watching. See you next time.